Hello there, welcome to the Football Bloc. My name is Brandon. I'm joined here with Tyler. Tyler's back.
Hello.
Today we're going to talk about the Inter-Confederation Playoff matches to see who fills out these two spots for the World Cup, and we're going to give our predictions. So if that sounds interesting, let's hop right into it. All right, so we have two games here, two games between five different continents. There was a semifinal on either side of the bracket. Now we have these two finals here to decide two of the last spots for the World Cup. So far, 48 spots confirmed, and we're going to talk about the UEFA spots in another video, but right here we have these two finals for the Inter-Confederations Cup. We have Bolivia going up against Iraq, and then we have Jamaica going up against the Democratic Republic of Congo. For both of these games, we are going to look at how all these teams got to this point, and then we are going to see how these teams line up against each other, and then give a final prediction. Any opening thoughts, Tyler?
It's going to be interesting to see on how these two teams make it, and seeing the difference between Jamaica, or at least for what I'm covering, Jamaica versus DR Congo, just the difference in style between an African team versus a more Central American team that plays in CONCACAF.
I agree. So without further ado, let's start off looking at the first match. We have Bolivia going up against Iraq. In the last game, in the semifinal, Bolivia went up against Suriname of CONCACAF, and honestly, it was a pretty tight game. It was very open, lots of chances for either side. Bolivia ended up winning 2-1 on the night. I think it's ultimately a fair score. Bolivia, you can just look, they have a little bit more talent on the field than Suriname had. But that being said, it was still very close. Suriname had a whole bunch of chances, and it went down to the wire. Iraq, because they're higher ranked, they got path right to the final here. Iraq, obviously representing AFC, the Asian Confederation. They had to go through 4 rounds of qualification before making this game here. I would say, honestly, both of these teams are at a pretty similar level in terms of talent. Bolivia, game in and game out, plays better teams. Obviously, they're in CONMEBOL, so they're playing against the likes of Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, every single one of their qualifying matches versus Iraq. There's some quality teams in Asia, but the vast majority of teams are of a much lower quality. That being said, Iraq does have some pretty good tournament experience. They've gone far in the most recent Asian Cups and Arab Cups as well. They have a few talented players in the context of Asian football. Bolivia, on the other hand, does not have good tournament experience at all. If I remember correctly, the last time they made a knockout round of any tournament was Copa America 2015. So it's been over 10 years since they made it. Last time they made it to the World Cup, though, was 1994, which was in the U.S. as well. Iraq made, I believe it was the 1986 World Cup. So both these teams have been to the World Cup before. How do you think these teams line up against each other, Tyler?
I think, as you said, Iraq just has a little bit better team on paper. I also do think Bolivia has been carried a little bit with their home advantage. That is, no one wants to play there. Even teams like Argentina struggle with that height. I think when it's not going to be in their advantage, I think we'll see it really struggle. I think this will be the end of the road for Bolivia. I think Iraq will make it to the next round and go to the World Cup.
All right, well, what is your final score prediction?
I'm going to go 2-0 Iraq.
Okay. In any other given time period, if this game was played, say, 2 months ago, a month and a half ago, I would have agreed with you. I would have sided with Iraq. But given the geopolitical context of the world right now, all the tensions and the conflict going on in that region, I'm actually going to side with Bolivia. I think there's just so much stuff going on behind the scenes outside of football. There was talk of this game being postponed. The Iraq national team tried to postpone it. It was hard for them to even get out of the country. I think that will weigh on the players' minds. We've seen this before at previous tournaments where external conflict stuff that's going on outside of the sport can affect how the players go about this game. So I think it ultimately will be very close. I 100% agree. I think Bolivia, they play great when they're at home. Away from home, they're easily the worst team in South America. But I think they're going to carry the momentum of their win against Suriname over into this game. And I think they'll come out on top. Like I said, it's going to be really close. I'm going to say 2-1 to Bolivia. Any final thoughts?
As you said, it's interesting to see whether this geopolitical stuff impacts Iraq and whether they can move past it. That is something where it could end up biting them. We'll find out tomorrow.
True. All right, so the next matchup we're going to look at is the other side of that bracket. We have DR Congo going up against Jamaica.
Yeah, and just to give a little background, if you haven't been following it, Jamaica early beat New Caledonia 1-0, and then DR Congo was able to, with being a higher seeding team, get that advance through after beating Nigeria in the playoffs, so they will be the home team. Looking at the two teams, Jamaica, New Caledonia was 1-0, but it was not a convincing 1-0 for Jamaica. They only had 2 big chances out of over 24 attempts, while New Caledonia had 1. They really played down to their level, and it's interesting to see if this will be another one of the same, and if they play like how they did against New Caledonia, they will get absolutely destroyed in this game. Or if maybe they're just one of those teams where they need to play a better opponent in order to play better. And DR Congo played great against Nigeria. They had a slight stumble in AFCON against Algeria, but we'll see how that turns out. They do have a really deceptive team with many of their players being in the top 5 leagues, including Spain, La Liga, obviously, and then Ligue 1, and they have Wan-Bissaka still going strong, and the Prem. In terms of score predictions, I think it's going to be DR Congo. I think it might even be 3-0. I think Jamaica just does not have the mind frame for it, and they kept squandering chances against New Caledonia, and you're not going to be able to do that against a stronger team for DR Congo. What about you, Brandon?
I 100% agree. I think that while the other match is pretty tight, I think this one's very straightforward. I can only see a possibility of DR Congo going through. If Jamaica's playing to their best, all their players playing to the top level, I'd still side with DR Congo. But Jamaica's players are not playing to their best. If you look at just their squad, they have some Premier League regulars or former Premier League regulars, some guys that are good in MLS or were good in MLS, but they just don't work together. There's been a history of issues with this team. They never perform to the level that they should, and I think that was clear on display against New Caledonia. We're talking about a team that's mostly amateur players, and Jamaica barely won. I mean, it was the goal that they scored. It was, the goalkeeper spilled the ball and the Jamaican striker tapped it in. So not a good performance from Jamaica. If you compare that to DR Congo, they're one of the best teams in Africa. I think they were very unlucky to not automatically qualify to the World Cup already. They were in a very tough group. They did well in the last AFCON. So I think that this could get ugly. I'm going to side with you and say 3-0 because DR Congo usually doesn't play a more very aggressive attacking style, but there is such a clear talent gap here and such a clear just performance level, a ceiling that either team can hit. So I totally agree. I'm going to say 3-0 to DR Congo. So I think we're pretty much in agreement on that game. The last game, there's some disagreements, at least on the final score. You're saying Iraq and DR Congo go through?
Yes.
And I'm saying DR Congo and Bolivia go through as those final 2 spots for the World Cup. Any final thoughts?
I just hope we have good games tomorrow and it's an entertaining game.
I agree. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you, Tyler, for joining here. As always, it's great to have you.
Of course, glad to be here anytime.
Yeah. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. What you think is going to happen in these games. Please let us know. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think that Jamaica can upset everyone, even though the odds are against them? Do you think Bolivia can show up and prove us wrong and say that they can play good away from home on a normal latitude, not thousands of miles above sea level? Let us know all your thoughts in the comment section below. But anyway, guys, my name is Brandon.
This has been Tyler.
I hope you guys have a nice rest of your night.